Hello, everyone. It's Renee, the practical shaman, coming to you from sunny Palm Springs.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sandra and welcome to the Shaman's Cave. And we're having a windy, cold day here today.
Well, I think I'll let you explain the topic since it was yours, and um, but it's a really sunny topic.
Yeah, it's a sunny topic. Yeah. So, um, so I had my birthday the other day, and we didn't know what to do. I got that long cold that everybody has. I'm symptom free. I'm not passing it on. I just haven't been able to get my full energy back. So, what do you do when you can't get your full energy back? You go to a movie. And so we went to go see the Dylan movie, which I'm sorry, I don't even know the title. And we went to go see the Bob Dylan movie. And it just really, for one, it's a brilliant movie. It's got great reviews. People really love it. But it brought up so much for me. And I've had these unbelievable conversations with people about it over Facebook, email, and on Messenger because I wrote about it. I came home from the movie and I immediately wrote about it on Facebook. And so I grew up in the '60s. I was not old enough when Dylan first appeared, so it was before my time. Really, around 1968 was when I kind of jumped in to what was happening politically in the United States. But I had started smoking marijuana and taking psychedelics. I started smoking marijuana and hash at the age of 13. It was readily available in New York and everybody was doing it. And then as a teenager, I took LSD every day. And so, yeah, no, I took LSD every day for years. I did. I called it my vitamin C. Before I went to school, I popped an LSD. And you would not believe my grades. I never studied. My brain just knew everything. And so I got A's everywhere. So, anyway, that's besides the point. Back into circular storytelling. And so, but then demonstrating against racist issues, demonstrating against the Vietnam War, being down there on Wall Street, being gassed and hit with rocks and cans. And I did that whole thing. And I was in Brooklyn College at the time and a very, very political, really political. And so we just kept that life going for a really long time. And so we were all the discussions that I'm having with people from that generation are really interesting in that what we're really seeing is that although things didn't go on, the world maybe didn't get any better from what we did, but we came together as one community. There was no infighting, there was no separation. We stood up together as one community. And Renee, what for me, what I'm seeing right now and what people are writing to me about as we reflect on those times and what the difference is now is that it seems like the spiritual community is too divided to come together, to really stand together. And that's what's really needed. It's not even what change comes from it, is are we willing to stand together?
Uh, it's an interesting question. There was this guy, the Zappy guy who was doing ketamine retreats out at our retreat center last year, and he believes that the community all needs to do ketamine together. And so what you're talking about is that you're all doing LSD together. Uh, and the movie's name is A Complete Unknown. So the fact that you couldn't remember it kind of because it's a complete unknown, uh, like a Rolling Stone. But you're a couple years older than me, so I kind of missed that whole time of where everyone was coming together, like the Woodstock and the where everyone they were either there was like a common for some reason we can't find the common ground of what to stand on.
Yeah.
And because we can't agree upon anything. So, like, some people think that there is global warming. Some people believe that, that's an economic farce to create a whole economic thing around those products. So it's like we can't find the common ground. And I don't think it was the acid that helped you find the common ground. I think that there was something that we held as a soul collective that we're missing.
Absolutely. What what my husband Woods keeps saying over and over again is that the difference is there was a war going on, and that brought people together. Where right now there's just so many issues going on that people are split on all the issues, where I think we're going to have something to come together on. And so I think that we're going to see more support in the community coming together as the years continue. But right now, the split, and everybody's so opinionated and everybody's so egoed out about what they know, instead of being open and connecting and listening. And I don't know if it's just too much scrolling on social media where people don't stop to actually listen to other people. I'm not sure what the issue is, but I see a very divided community. I believe it's going to force to come together, like I believe this country and the world is going to be forced to come together. But why do we have to be forced to come together?
And the things that used to force us to come together are not working anymore. Like we are involved in wars. We have people around like the world fighting other people's wars, and we just we're at war with ourselves. I mean, think about and I'm just closer to California at the moment, like how we're talking about how aid should be doled out, how we should handle people who just lost everything, the same, in North Carolina, North Carolina, I keep screwing that up. And then in Florida, I mean, there's just one disaster after the next disaster, and we can't even come together for aid for people because we're too busy thinking about like, well, they don't deserve it, or this is a land grab. I mean, we just are so disjointed. It kind of breaks my heart. But I did have to look at something.
Well, there is something though with North Carolina, because North Carolina and Louisiana did the same thing during Katrina. What happened in North Carolina, this is from my students who live there, it's not from the news, it's from people who actually live there, is that to people on the East Coast, Asheville is like Sedona to the people on the East Coast. So you did have mountain men coming up from the depths of the different really small communities. You had gays coming together, you had trans coming together, you had Democrats coming together, you had Republicans, and everybody stood building side by side to bring this town back because it was so special to them. And the same thing happened in Louisiana during Katrina. The government never came in. The government never gave anything except moldy RVs for people to move into. Black mold everywhere. That's the aid that everybody got. And so it was the communities that came together to help each other out. And so we have examples of what we can do. I saw the same thing back in the 90s, early 90s in Tennessee, after a hurricane or tornado came and completely wrecked a town. The government just failed them, gave them not a dime. So everybody came together and rebuilt each other's houses. And so we have examples of what's possible. My issue is, why does things have to get so bad, so catastrophic, where we're leveled to the ground before all these different communities come together? We could come together now and start looking at ways to avoid these kinds of issues.
Yeah, and I guess we are so busy scrolling, we forget to, go outside and see, what our neighbors need and things like that. And I don't know, it's kind of it's kind of an interesting thing, because there was a fire up in the community where I live recently, and I saw how neighbors came out to help one neighbor, so instead of like en masse, imagine if we could catch it a lot sooner. That's kind of an interesting idea. And the other thing for me that I had to look at is, I had to look deeper at my own shadow. Like, when in my life did I put blame on the person who was suffering, or the one who skinned their knee, or the one that lost? And I had to look to see that I had done that. Like, well, if you just didn't do that, you wouldn't be in this position now, would you? And so it's like, it's so easy to blame, the big guy up there, like, oh, but I think we have to take it way back to, well, when have I done that to somebody?
Right.
And I look at it, I'm there like, wow, those little judgments that come in around, like, well, like, there's a lot of people who have judgments about the people who lost, their multi-million-dollar homes. Well, they're okay, they can afford it.
Right.
As opposed to somebody who couldn't. Like, again, that's, we're comparing and contrasting and judging.
Right. And we're not even looking at, like, Woods told me today he saw a picture of a movie star, I won't say his name, just looking like an absolute shell shock. It's another human being who just kind of traumatized. And, I've actually wanted to do a show on this, but I think I can say what I want to say right here, because what I find is that people have a limited capacity for compassion in culture. And I'm speaking about that from personal experience, in that I know so many people, including myself, have long-term disability issues. And in my life, the first thing that happened was everybody looked at, what did you do wrong to create this? So I felt the whole blame from my community instead of any love coming through. And then when these things go on and on, like thousands and thousands of people are dealing with today all over the world because of the toxins and all these things, people have really long-term issues. There's no compassion at some point from anyone. I mean, anyone. So it becomes the most isolate. You become so isolated because people don't know how to hang in there with an issue. Oh, you're still dealing with that? You're still actually dealing with that? So, we're seeing the same thing happening. Even now in LA, it's like, oh, they'll get it together. They'll build it back again. Instead of stopping and having some compassion for the trauma that people are going through, it's amazing to see how blame has taken over for compassion.
Mm, I know. I think you have to, I mean, I don't even know. Compassion is such a broad shoulders. Like, because first of all, you have to be aware when you're not in the judgment and not in the compassion, and that move to just hold somebody in their perfect divine light is um takes a lot of I don't know. I don't know if it's our perfect state that we then move away from, and then we spend our whole life trying to get back to. But I know that I could have a lot more compassion.
Yeah, when I wrote Medicine for the Earth, Isis wanted me to write on the difference between compassion, empathy, and sympathy. And that was a really interesting topic to write on. And her reason for that was she said the spirits are having such a hard time having practitioners use them as a vessel, which is what shamanism is about. You don't do the work, the spirits do the work. So you have to be a clear channel. And Isis said, I wrote Medicine for the Earth in the 1990s, so we're going back a ways. She said, you're also clogged up with empathy and pity and all this stuff. We can't do our work through you. You're just clogged up with all this stuff. And we can't even help anymore.
Oh, that's interesting. I was doing work this week with somebody, and when I went inside to look, there was this like it looked like that gooey stuff that used to pour out and then harden up, but it looked like there was a layer of it over the earth. Like that we've become so toxic in our thinking that we've now put this layer of slime that we're all sloshing through because it wasn't it or that's what it looked like to me. That's the best way that I could describe it. It was like, wow, you know, how do you take a big bucket and wash this away? But,
Yeah.
and then and then it kind of is that gooey slime that just comes back. So you're like throwing another bucket on it. And I just was I hadn't, I knew that I was feeling tired and sluggish, but then when I actually saw people taking these steps in this stuff, and we forget that our thinking creates these forms. What are you thinking? And if you're not having this compassion for somebody, whether they agree with you politically or not, who just lost their home, you might be pouring more slime into the core that we're all stepping into. And I really invite us to really look to see what we're stepping on.
Yeah, when I wrote Medicine for the Earth, I felt very challenged by a few things because it's not just a shamanic book. There's a lot on excuse me. I'll just take a minute.
That's okay.
There's a lot in the book on alchemy. I'm an alchemist at heart. I love alchemy, and I always have. I just love it. And so when I taught transfiguration, which is seeing everybody, seeing everybody in their light and experiencing your spiritual light and remembering that who you are is really spiritual light, and that your body is just the costume that you're taking on for this lifetime. And so in alchemy, they would never teach anybody transfiguration for, something like 20 years. You had to be an initiate for 20 years before you started to learn about things like transfiguration and transmutation, how you can transmute toxicity into light. And for me, I was going, I don't have 20 years. And not me. The planet doesn't have 20 years to prepare people for this work. People have to get into this work now. But now I'm looking at, did people really do enough work to understand the true magic and the power behind what transmutation and what transfiguration can do? And so I think it's really stepping back and really diving into our spiritual practices and really looking at those shadow states that don't allow us to move into true compassion and keep us in a place of ego, because who's talking when we're in ego? It's not spirit.
Right. And we're not adding to the clear water of, we're just adding to the gunk.
Right.
So I think we've kind of weave this back to the people in the 60s who came together for a reason. I think that we become so awake with ourselves that we're back in the shadow of ourselves. And maybe we're coming full circle. I don't know, because I just have to stay out of the mainstream of it all, because I always can see both sides. Mm-hmm. And I try to stay open to both sides enough to know that I'm not spirit and I don't really know.
Right. I think for me, I think because of my life process, because of my destiny, because of many different things, I'm kind of shifting away from the human condition and more looking at cycles of nature. I'm not that much on humans right now. Although I love humans, I'm just not focused on them right now. And I'm so fascinated with cycles and changing cycles and the cycles that we enter and the cycles that we leave. And so exactly, Renee, what you talked about, it's all about cycles. We're not in a linear process on this planet. We're in a cycle that spirals. And so I think we're back in the cycle of the shadow, but that cycle will always lead us back to our own light.
We hope, unless we cycle ourselves right on out of here. I know I was just talking about that we're in the rotting tree phase yesterday.
Okay.
I think, the tree rot the tree's been rotting for a few years now. So hopefully some of those nutrients that rotting tree is going to add to our collective well-being. And, as much as we hate fire, fire cleanses. Right. And it allows the forest regrowth, and actually even although there's a lot of toxicity in the air, some of the things that are released from the fire are things that other plants and nutrients need. And so hopefully we can find the nutrients to grow a bigger, better, more connected community would be my hope.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's a beautiful place to stop, and I think I think we will. I'm positive, but I see all the shadow states that people are going to have to work through to get to that place. And I absolutely believe that we're going to get there in my own heart. I do believe we're going to get there. Um, but I just ask people to have compassion and not so much judgment, and step back from the judgment and do your inner work and stop looking what's happening to other people, but do your inner work. And then you build the strength to be able to come and actually be a strong community member that helps to be a healing force for yourself, for your community, and the world.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you very much. And you know the places to follow us. Listen at your favorite podcast to the Shaman's Cave. And just remember, if you're pointing a finger out, there's three pointing back at you. So we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.